All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm your host, Dr. Well, what are you doing, Dr. Chris? Are you having some fun over there? That's my
I'm
co-host, Dr.
excited.
Look, I pointed the right way this time. Do you see that? That's Dr. Crystal right there. As you can see, we're not in the studio today because, amazingly, in November, we are experiencing a hurricane.
Yes.
Crazy. I have a pop quiz for you, Dr. Crystal.
Okay.
It's about hurricanes.
Bring it on.
How many hurricanes have hit South Florida in November since 1900?
Oh, goodness. You and your weird factoids that
Four.
you know.
Only four. This makes the fifth one in a very long period of time. So you guys, if you're not from South Florida, this is a rare event. Normally this time of the year, we finally start to cool off, right? Things start to feel good. But anyway, so that's why we're not in the studio today. We're playing it safe. Um, and it's funny that we're actually talking. Guess what? We're talking about stress today. A lot of
Yes.
South Floridians are not only getting ready for the holidays, Thanksgiving, and now they have the stress of a hurricane. Matter of fact, November 2nd, right, Dr. Crystal, was Stress Awareness Day. If you didn't know that, don't worry about it. We're not going to stress over that. But we are going to talk on today's show about what is stress and the fight or flight reaction. We're going to talk about the types of stress, acute versus chronic, and then, of course, ways to manage stress. And that's where we want to spend, I think, most of our time. Because at the end of the day, if you're a little stressed out during the holiday season that's coming up, or because of a hurricane, you want answers, right, Doctor? People want to know
That's
what to
right.
do about this, right?
I know. And I just want to let you know that I do have the chat up. So I see some of you chatting now. Yeah, someone mentioned maybe it's global warming, Dr. Mike. What do you
You know
think?
what? I'm not gonna. Maybe so. I'm not sure. All I know is it's happening right now.
Right. Yes. But yeah, feel free to tell us where you are. Maybe you're in South Florida as well or not. And what are some things that that stresses you out this during the holiday season?
Right,
Maybe
right.
we
And
can
listen,
give
let's
you some
all
solutions.
yeah, let's all be honest. I mean, holiday season's wonderful. I love it. I love Thanksgiving. I think out of all of it, Thanksgiving's probably one of my favorites because I just enjoy the meal. The you don't have to buy gifts for people. It's just food, which is kind of nice. Christmas gets a little more stressy at the with everything else because Christmas isn't just the food; it's also the gifts and everything else that goes along with it. So let's start off talking about kind of what is stress. And I know Dr. Crystal, you and I have talked about this and a lot of people are asking about this online. What is this idea of fight or flight? What does that really mean? And how does that affect us when it comes to stress? What do you think?
Yeah, it's that acute or that immediate response to an actual stress or even a perceived stress, Dr. Mike. It's a survival mechanism, it's what's kept us alive for all of these generations. And it's very valuable when you are at risk for an attack or if there is a real stressor that you're trying to get away from, like a gator here in South Florida. Those are stressors, or you get into a car accident, or your child is in the pool and they jumped in and they don't know how to swim, and you need that immediate response. Is almost the fight or flight. You can't really control it, Dr. Mike. This
Right.
is just an
It's
automatic response to help you survive.
Yeah. So it's not a bad thing, right? We have, and
No.
I think it's an important point to make. Stress is not necessarily bad. There's a stress response in the body that is designed to keep you safe and healthy. And we call that the fight or flight process or stress response. You talk about a gator. I've made the analogy of like if you're being attacked by a bear, in that moment you want to fight or get out of there. Hopefully you just get out of there. That system is what allows you to actually do that. But let's get into what's actually happening in the body at a physiological level with fight or flight. And we're going to make an interesting connection here, and we'll get to that. But let's review that for the audience. What is the first initial thing that happens to me when that bear or, as you said, gator pops up?
Yeah, so you have an immediate release of chemicals throughout the body. And these chemicals, we all know about adrenaline, of course, as being one of those hormones or chemical messengers that's released. And what's happening? You have blood vessel constriction, you have blood moving away from the digestive tract or even the kidneys and moving towards the skeletal muscle. It's about let's get more blood flow, more energy. The liver starts releasing glucose, it's storage of glucose because we know we need that glucose available for the muscles to use for energy. It's all about releasing those reserves, even fatty
Right.
acids getting released so that you have energy available to fight that bear. If you're
Yeah.
staying to fight, you
Or
probably
flight.
should run.
Or run or get out of there. Right. So the first thing, boom, signal, adrenaline, and there's other ones. You bring it down to just the nervous system. You got the sympathetic nervous system. You got the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your driver. Parasympathetic nervous system is the one that calms you down. So obviously, when that gator hits or that bear comes, or you got to slam on the brakes in traffic, it's the sympathetic system that kicks in, and that's what drives those signaling molecules. That's what drives the circulation changes, and that is your acute stress response. And again, it's all designed to get you moving, get you fighting. It's a survival process. Dr. Crystal, a lot of people then, when they hear all this, it's like, okay, I get that it's my survival thing, but all this kind of stuff doesn't sound good for me. Is it dangerous overall? I mean, do we want to reduce the number of fight or flights, or is that even possible?
That's a good question, Dr. Mike. Initially, I would think, okay, that's not possible. But we know it's possible because we know there are people who are trained to kind of resist that fight or flight, like astronauts or
Oh, good
these
point.
fighters or
Yeah,
the military special force operations, specialists.
or the gator catchers here in Florida.
Right. So they have somehow been able to train themselves to resist it. But usually that initial acute fight or flight is something that you want. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you would want to avoid it because you want that release of reserves. You want that increase of blood pressure. These are things that's going to enable the body to have that supernatural strength,
Right.
that people experience during a dangerous event. However, now this is where it gets, if you're dealing with fight or flight, or you're having, remember we talked about, or I said that fight or flight was actual or perceived stress.
Right. Right.
If you're having fight or flight responses to something that you perceive to be a stressor, but maybe it's not a true stressor where you need the release of those reserves, now we're getting into something
Right.
that you wouldn't want.
Right. Because if it's more in the perceived side and you're releasing all the sugar, you're releasing all the fat, you're changing how the circulation is flowing in your body, and you're not utilizing that, right? There's really no real reason for that. There could be a increase in oxidative stress, increase in inflammation in the body, and that's going to cause maybe some tissue damage, what have you. I think you made an interesting point when we were talking about all this, is the relationship between the change in blood flow moving away from the gut into the muscles. And if you don't really need that, that can cause some problems because we know the gut and brain are connected, right? Gut is connected to brain and stress. What do you tell us a little bit more about that? You think that's a real driving factor here?
Yes, I think it's a driving factor. Just going back to what you mentioned about the blood sugar, I think the chronic stress is really, and I don't have to say, I think we know in research now it's associated with diabetes. It's associated with high blood pressure. You're not quite sure why you have high blood pressure. You're not consuming lots of salt. You're exercising, but your blood pressure is elevated. Maybe it's this chronic stress. And then when we look at gut health, we know that stress it changes the environment of the bacteria in your gut. It changes the
Yep.
byproducts that those bacteria create. It changes the amount of brain feel good neurotransmitters like serotonin that's produced. It changes the immune system. We know that the stress response suppresses that cortisol suppresses the immune system. So now you're more susceptible to the cold that's going around,
Right. Good point. Yeah.
whatever viruses or whatever is in the air at that time, or whatever you're exposed to. Now you're more susceptible to those things because your immune system is suppressed. So I think you can look broadly at stress as being a driver for many things.
Yeah, yeah. Well established chronic stress associated and I'm just going to read this list. I mean, this is a research supported list right here. Metabolic syndrome goes up, obesity goes up, cancer rates go up, mental health disorders like depression go up, cardiovascular disease goes up, and as you just mentioned, your immune system goes down, and now you're susceptible to infections. Those are well established things associated with chronic stress. So what are we going to do? We got to help people manage all this, right?
Right.
Again, if you're going to become an astronaut and go through all kinds of training to control your physiology and be what, fine, go do that. But most of us aren't, so we need some help. And so let's talk a little bit first about lifestyle things that have been well established to know to help to reduce fight or flight a little bit, to modify that response. What are some of your top lifestyle things?
Yeah, so physical activity or exercise,
Big,
hands
right?
down. We
Burns all
know
that stuff off.
it does. And it's sometimes it's that pressure that you feel in your chest. When the pressure's boiling up in your body, and just that the deep breath. I like the when I like more aerobic exercise personally versus the weight training when I'm really stressed, because those deep breaths that you take
Good.
when the heart rate increases helps to release some of that stress that I feel personally in my chest.
Yeah,
And
it makes sense because if you're releasing all these molecules to increase sugar and fat, your body is basically wanting to exercise in a way. It's wanting you to get out of there,
mhm,
right? So go
yeah.
exercise, burn some of that stuff off, and you can mitigate some of the inflammation and oxidative stress that comes along with that. So physical activity is fantastic. What about meditation? Prayer time, mindfulness. What do you think about those things?
All of the above, Dr. Mike. And these are things that I think people struggle with, is specifically the meditation, because they feel like they have to turn off their thoughts, but you can find things to read, scriptures, even your music that can help with the meditation process. There are mindful meditation apps that you can also use to help to guide you through that meditation process. And it's just something, if you've never tried it,
Right.
I
Yeah.
encourage you to try it. It can be
Good.
life changing, and it helps to release the stress. Dr. Mike, I'll give you a quick story.
Sure.
I've been traveling a lot, different conferences. I was recently at the American Nutrition Association conference, and they had a guided meditation session. And so we're
Oh,
sitting, all day listening to all of these talks. And I started not to go, and I went, and just going through that meditation, I mean, I didn't even realize the stress that I was carrying. I mean, it's one of those things, you sometimes you don't even know it. And like I was like practically in tears, and I'm thinking,
it's
"Oh
awesome.
goodness, I am
Yeah.
really having a moment here. I needed this." And so I encourage you, even if you don't think you need it, you
Yeah.
generally feel like you're not, you handle your stress well, meditation is always a good strategy.
And you brought up a point. Some people avoid it because they feel like they can't do it because they can't turn their thought process off, and they think meditation is having no thought. A real prominent psychiatrist that I worked with when I was in medical school said something really interesting once. He was like, when you meditate, if you have a thought, go with that thought. Let it take you where it needs to take you, because 10 minutes later, you're not stressed out thinking about what was stressing you out, because you followed a different train of thought. So meditation isn't necessarily, I mean, I guess people have different opinions about it, but it's not necessarily just become blank,
Yeah.
you can have thoughts, follow them, and remove yourself from the stressful thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Try replacing those stressful thoughts with positive thoughts. So it's a retraining of the mind that is a practice, Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
You hear
You
people talk
practice it.
about it, and it's not something that you do it one time and that's it.
Right, right. Music therapy, excellent. A lot of new research coming out about that. And then, of course, you know us. We've talked about this a lot. Pet therapy, right? We just
Yes,
did it. Didn't we just do a podcast or something on petting dog? Oh, wait,
we did.
that's my Charlie boy.
Oh, kudos to our production team for finding that picture. Hannah, thank you.
Oh, yes, and petting your dogs. Crystal says cats are included with that, and I'm not
Yes,
sure.
they
Research
are.
doesn't really point to that, but yeah, a lot. So music is great. Pets definitely can play a role. So there are some lifestyle things you can do. Supplementation, though, I think is important. Nutritional solutions. We mentioned the gut. When you're pulling all that circulation away from your gut, that causes inflammation, that causes some issues there. It would seem to me maybe the number one thing I should do is look at gut supplementation. Nutrients good for my gut health, right?
Yes, I would say nutrients good for your gut health, foods that support gut health as well. We tend to reach for high calorie foods when we're stressed. That's the odd part of it. Whenever we are stressed, we're less likely to eat the things that's going to help us to manage the stress.
Right, right,
But you know, good foods with prebiotics, fiber, fruit, vegetables, and when it comes to probiotics, we know there's research now with specific strains of probiotics that can help the body to manage the stress. The strains of lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, they have been associated in research to improve the stress response.
right, right. And so check that out. I think gut health is a key thing. I've said it before. You're really only as healthy as your gut overall, right? So I think probiotics is a great place to begin. And there are specific strains, right, Dr. Christo? That's an important point. There's general gut strain probiotics, but there are specific strains of probiotics that have been shown to improve mood. That includes depression, that includes anxiety, and these are clinically researched. So sometimes you want to look for those specific strains. What about neurotransmitter influencing, Dr. Chris? I think to me that seems important. One of my favorites is saffron, right? Saffron is kind of one of your feel good neurotransmitters. It's connected right to serotonin. I've been talking about saffron for a long time. What do you think about it? Is it one of your favorites?
Well, I have it's not one of my favorites, Dr. Mike.
Ah,
But I'll tell you why. There's always a why. I love saffron, so that's I love it. It's helpful. There's good research with standardized saffron with helping with carb cravings whenever you are stressed, and you're kind of going towards those carbs.
that's
Personally, I lose my appetite. I'm one of those ones when I'm stressed, I have to force myself to eat. So
uh,
it's not something that I typically would turn to. Now I'll tell you my favorite. You
Wait, can I
should
try
know
to
this.
guess?
You can guess.
Can I try to guess your favorite?
Yes.
Well, theanine.
Yes.
Did I get it? Is that right? Seriously?
Yes.
Oh,
Dr.
good.
Mike.
And you talked about it before a lot. You talked about green tea, theanine, so I figured that's where it was.
Theanine is one of my favorites, and it even helps me to not have such a jittery feeling when I drink my coffee. It's
Ooh.
that good.
Yeah, theanine, 200 milligrams to 400 milligrams a day, right? It's an amino acid from green tea. I mean, you would have to drink a lot of green tea to get that amount, right? So really, supplementation is key, I would think, right?
Yes, and we have research again. One study in particular, as low as 200 milligrams per day of a non-extend release, because there are two different types of theanine. We should clear up. There's your immediate release theanine. There's extended release theanine, which is some newer theanine technology. There's Charlie. But it's been shown to be beneficial theanine for its stress related symptoms,
Yeah.
cognitive function in the 4-week trial. But one thing I like about theanine, one last plug, is that it works quickly for me.
Okay, good.
Within about 30 minutes, I can feel a difference, Dr. Mike.
Very nice, very good. Adaptogens, I think, are big. Adaptogens are these herbs that help you to adapt to stress.
Yes.
And what I like about adaptogens, if you need some calming down, they help you adjust to that and calm down. If you need to come up a little bit, in your mood, they can do that. They adapt to you and your situation. American ginseng is a great choice. I think we researched this, about 200 milligrams of fermented Asian ginseng.
Yes.
Very, very supportive in helping you to kind of reduce the stress response. Ashwagandha, of course, I always talk about ashwagandha. That's a big one. Rhodiola is even one that some people have some success with. What about hormones here? Hormone balancing. What are the key hormones that we should be looking at?
Yeah, so the two that stand out, or three that stand out. One is DHEA. You always see DHEA mentioned in relation to cortisol. It can just help to level out that cortisol, and especially if you're dealing with elevated cortisol. So it's something that it's also depleted by stress.
Yep, yep.
DHEA. That's a hormone. Some people call it the mother hormone. Um, and then the other is pregnenolone, which is
Right.
also helps to manage stress. Some people call that the grandmother hormone. And the reason DHEA and pregnenolone, they get these names, mother, grandmother, because they can trickle down and help to support levels
Right.
of other hormones in the
But
hormone cascade. So they're kind of higher up
That's
in the
it's
cascade.
it's funny because, see, you're young. Dr. Crystal's a lot younger to me. She's gone through her education, way after I did. When I was her age, pregnenolone was the mother hormone. We didn't even really talk about DH, but now we evolved that, and that pregnenolone's the grandma and DHA is the mom. That's great. I love that. But both of these, DHA and pregnenolone, yes, they're classified as steroid hormones, but ultimately they're neuroactive, they're brain active compounds, and so they can play a very important role, right,
Hmm.
in helping us manage all of that stress that we may be dealing with. And then we can't, I mean, if you're going to talk about um, hormones, you're going to talk about the adaptogens, the probiotics, we have to end this with B vitamins and the importance of B vitamins, right?
Yes, they are needed for the production of brain chemicals, those neurotransmitters. We know that they act as, we call them cofactors, but they're just needed for dopamine production, needed for serotonin production,
Right.
also involved with the production of GABA, which is our calming neurotransmitter. So yes, 100% think about B vitamins. A combination of B vitamins can be helpful.
For sure. I mean, really something we should be taking every day. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. Good
Hmm.
multivitamin. Some people even, because of stress issues, might also do a standalone B complex as well. And that's perfectly
Hmm.
fine. So hopefully we gave you some good solutions today. Think about those lifestyle things, factors. The meditation, I think, is a big one. The pet therapy, the music therapy, all things that work well. You saw Charlie, just petting him right there just makes, I mean, everybody just smiles right when you see his face. You just can't help
I
it.
know.
And so then also though, we couple that, that the lifestyle stuff is good, food is first, but supplementation can play a big role in filling in that gap that we
Right.
often have between our lifestyle and our dietary choices. And so the probiotics are key, the adaptogens, the hormones, the B vitamins, theanine for Dr. Crystal, saffron for me. It is funny because when I'm more stressed, I tend to eat. When you're more stressed, you tend not to eat. So we like the two different, and that's fine, right?
Hmm.
Everybody's different. So we have a great protocol for you, right? This is our life extension stress protocol, lifeextension.com/stress response. Oh, there you see
Yes.
it on the screen. Lifeextension.com/stress response.
Yes, and Dr. Mike, we actually switched that out. That's going to an article all about fight or flight.
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
scratch what I just said. It's a fight or flight article, but that stress protocol, go check it out at the website as well, because that's full of lot more information
Yep.
on all of this. I want to thank everybody for watching Life Extension Live. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 3,
Hmm.
hurricane or not. We're going live, right? Don't forget, though, like, share, comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe even give some suggestions of topics you might want us to cover. And don't forget to hit the interested button. That way, every time we go live, we can let you know we're about to go so you never miss a show. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for watching.